as a flattened effect.
Yes, and that was also paired with derealization.
And what does that mean?
That an individual experiencing derealization doesn't feel things are real when they look around. They don't think that what they're seeing is in the reality that they're in.
Now, at this time, towards the end of November into early December of 22, she was living in Duxbury, nature.
Yes. She was having paranoid symptoms of psychosis, and she was getting more depressed.
Did she make any comments about DCF or the police at that point?
Yes.
Now, to your knowledge, did she ever have any involvement in her entire life with the police?
Never.
And did she express that she was in fear or concerned about DCF and or the police in the middle of December 22?
Very much so.
What did she say?
She was worried that...
Before we get into this testimony, pay close attention to the timeline, because this case is not about one isolated moment. It is about a documented progression of symptoms, treatment attempts, emergency room visits, medication changes, and increasingly disturbing thoughts. The witness is being asked to walk the jury through what Lindsay Clancy reportedly experienced beginning in late November 2022 and continuing into January 2023. And right away, the testimony describes unstable mood, depression, dissociation, derealization, and eventually thoughts of suicide. But here's where this testimony becomes especially important. The defense is not simply saying that Lindsay was struggling emotionally. The testimony is building toward a much more specific medical and legal argument. Whether she was experiencing a severe mental disease or defect at the time of the incident and, critically, whether that condition affected her ability to understand the wrongfulness of her conduct or conform her behavior to the law. We're also going to hear about repeated attempts to seek help, including calls to a suicide hotline, treatment at a perinatal clinic, emergency room visits, hospitalization, medication changes, and continued reports of intrusive thoughts and voices. Yet there is another major issue the jury has to wrestle with. Lindsay was also able to perform ordinary activities: driving, taking her daughter to an appointment, using a computer, communicating by text, and even building a snowman. So how do those apparently ordinary actions fit alongside testimony describing psychosis? Can someone experiencing psychosis still appear functional? And does functioning normally in certain moments necessarily mean someone is mentally well? Those questions become central as this testimony unfolds. And by the end, the expert will give the jury a direct opinion about bipolar disorder, postpartum psychosis, and the legal significance of Lindsay's mental state. Stay with the timeline, because the details leading up to that conclusion are what make this testimony so consequential.
Sir, I'm going to try to just redirect towards the interview that you had of Lindsay regarding her journey. On November 29th of 2022, do you recall which healthcare provider she visited?
I believe that Ms. Clancy saw Ms. Gelada for treatment.
That would be nurse practitioner Gelada?
Yes.
Do you know what she complained on November 29th that her symptoms were?
She was having issues with unstable mood, depression, and psychotic symptoms of disassociation.
Did she also, on that date, November 29th of 22, complain that she had what is referred to as a flattened effect?
Yes, and that was also paired with derealization.
And what does that mean?
That an individual experiencing derealization doesn't feel things are real when they look around. They don't think that what they're seeing is in the reality that they're in.
Now, at this time, towards the end of November into early December of 22, she was living in Duxbury, is that correct?
That's correct.
And she's living with her husband and her three young children, correct?
Yes.
And was the husband working?
Yes.
Where was he working?
Pardon me, Attorney Redding?
Where was he working?
He was working for Microsoft, but in a home office that was in the basement of the house.
And she's obviously taking care of Callan the infant and Dawson and, Cora.
Yes.
and the kids were in school a couple of days a week in the preschool, the Little Sprouts or something like that, right?
Yes.
So did she improve at that point, sir, or did she end up going to South Shore Perinatal Clinic on December 2nd?
She did not improve. She was getting worse. She did go to the South Shore Perinatal Clinic.
And would that be on December 2nd?
December 2nd, yes.
And what was the reason, what were her complaints that brought her to South Shore Perinatal Clinic on December 2nd?
She felt that her brain was damaged. She felt that she should kill herself. And she's never going to get any better.
Did she also express fear that people could hear her thoughts and that anything adverse would happen in her life regarding being a mother and having children?
Yes, that's called thought broadcasting.
And what was her concern about the children?
Her concern was that when people could hear her thoughts, her children would be removed from her care.
Now, and keep your voice up, please.
Yes.
Did she indicate, and I quote, that she had bad and intrusive thoughts, and she didn't even feel that they were like mine, telling me I should kill myself, my brain is damaged, you're never going to get better?
Yes.
And did that type of intrusive thought or persecutory thought continue for a period of time?
Yes. So it got worse.
It gets so bad that she ended up doing something.
Yes, that's correct.
What did she do?
She called the suicide hotline.
And do you know when that was, sir?
That was December 4th, 2022.
Did she receive any help from the suicide hotline?
She did not.
Why is that?
They told her she did not meet the standard of care because she did not have a plan.
This is one of the first major turning points in the testimony. We're now hearing that Lindsay's condition had progressed from depression and disturbing thoughts to what the witness describes as paranoia and psychosis. And importantly, the testimony says she actually called a suicide hotline on December 4th. According to the witness, she did not receive help because she reportedly did not meet the standard being applied at that time because she did not have a plan. That distinction matters. Having suicidal thoughts and having a specific suicide plan are not necessarily the same thing. And the testimony is emphasizing that difference because it becomes part of the broader treatment history. The witness then says Lindsay called again later in December and still did not receive help. At the same time, her fears were becoming increasingly focused on her children. The testimony says she believed people could hear her thoughts and that DCF or police might take her children away. For the jury, those statements are important because they aren't being presented simply as ordinary worries about parenting. They are being described in the context of paranoia, psychosis, and intrusive thoughts. And this raises a difficult question. When someone is desperately trying to get help but their own perception of reality is becoming distorted, how should that behavior be understood? Is it evidence that they recognize something is wrong, or evidence of how severe the underlying condition has become? That's exactly the kind of distinction this testimony is asking the jury to consider.
Did she call the suicide hotline again, if you're aware?
Yes, she did.
Do you know when that was? Was that in December?
Yes, I believe that was perhaps the following week around the 15th, but I'm not positive about that.
Did she receive help on the second call that she called the suicide hotline?
No, she did not.
Can you tell us at this point now, we're talking about in December, let's say towards December 15th or thereabouts, what were her symptoms at that time regarding any complaints or observations that she had about paranoia or things of that nature?
Yes. She was having paranoid symptoms of psychoses, and she was getting more depressed.
Did she make any comments about DCF or the police at that point?
Yes.
Now, to your knowledge, did she ever have any involvement in her entire life with the police?
Never.
And did she express that she was in fear or concerned about DCF and or the police in the middle of December 22?
Very much so.
What did she say?
She was worried that her children would be removed from her and that she would never see them again.
Now, at this point, what medication was she on? First paragraph, page 9.
She started to take, at that point, Seroquel, Remeron, and Klonopin.
Did she make any complaints at that point about the effect, if any, of
Yeah.
medications?
Yes.
What did she say?
She said she felt like a zombie.
Did she present with any particular medical observation that you refer to?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well,
Attorney.
paragraph 1 on page 9, you indicate she presented with anhedonia.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Anhedonia is a word that means without pleasure. When someone has anhedonia, they cannot enjoy life, they don't laugh, they have no pleasure.
Continuing on into December, what was her status of her condition of depression and symptoms of paranoia and intrusive thoughts, et cetera, that we've talked about?
It continued unabated.
On December 15th of 22, right before the holidays, did she go somewhere?
Yes, she did.
Where'd she go?
She went to the clinic in Rhode Island, Parents and Women's Clinic, partial day hospitalization program.
And she didn't get any help there either, right?
That's correct.
Did she go at some point around that same time frame to Mass General Hospital?
Yes, she did.
Now, you knew that she worked at Mass General Hospital for 9 years, right?
That's correct, in labor
Wasn't
and
there-
delivery.
She wasn't there visiting friends, right?
That's correct.
Why was she there?
She was there in the emergency room to seek help.
Did she get help on that day?
She did not.
So after going to the MGH ER at some point in December 30th, what did she do?
She went back to the emergency room at Mass General.
Now, for example, on December 15th, did Pat Clancy, her husband, get involved with her medical treatment?
Yes.
And do the medical records indicate that he did something with her?
Yes, he brought her to the partial hospitalization program in Rhode Island.
Did he also bring her to the Mass General Hospital ER?
Yes, he did.
Did he also bring her to see the doctor or the nurse practitioner, Gelater, and complain about the medication?
Yes.
So December 30th, or 31st of 2022, she was admitted voluntarily to McLean, right?
That's correct, yes.
How long was she there for?
She was there till the 5th. She was discharged January 5th, 2023.
Was that a voluntary discharge? They cleared her as well to be discharged?
Yes.
That was not what is referred to as AMA, or against medical advice, right?
Yes.
Guess what?
Now the timeline takes another significant step. The testimony describes multiple attempts to obtain treatment, a partial hospitalization program in Rhode Island, emergency room visits at Mass General Hospital, and eventually a voluntary hospitalization extending into January 2023. The witness also describes Lindsay's husband, Pat Clancy, as being involved in bringing her to treatment and raising concerns about her medication. The medication issue is particularly notable because the testimony says Lindsay complained that she felt like a zombie, while also experiencing anhedonia, meaning an inability to experience pleasure. The witness says her depression, paranoia, and intrusive thoughts continued despite these interventions. And then comes an important clarification about her hospitalization. The witness says she was not discharged against medical advice. Instead, she was cleared for discharge and was tapering down medications afterward. That distinction matters because it tells the jury that the discharge was characterized as following hospital guidelines rather than as a patient simply leaving despite medical objections. But here's the bigger picture. Hospitalization did not mark the end of the symptoms described in this testimony. According to the witness, the intrusive thoughts and paranoia continued into January. So the question becomes whether the apparent improvement associated with discharge actually meant the underlying condition had resolved, or whether serious symptoms were still present beneath the surface. What do you think? Should someone who can participate in ordinary family life necessarily be considered mentally well, or can severe psychiatric symptoms exist alongside those everyday behaviors?
Yes, it's not AMA. It's not against medical advice. She was following hospital guidelines. She was discharged accordingly.
And she wanted to go to her daughter's some function?
She wanted to go to her daughter Cora's birthday party, which was held on the 7th of January.
Now, at this point, what was her status? Was she weaned off of medication or on her way to being weaned off of medication when she got out of McLean?
I believe so, yes. She was being tapered down on her medication.
And what was the medication that she was tapered down on?
I believe it was Seroquel and Klonopin.
Did her intrusive thoughts and the paranoia, did that abate? Did that stop?
It did not.
Now, when she was home in the month of January after Cora's birthday, which I think was on January 7th, did she continue to have these intensive, intrusive thoughts?
Yes.
Can you tell us, when we say intrusive thoughts, is she referring to intrusive thoughts like you might think of something coming up next week that's bothersome, or is this a indication, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree, of medical certainty as to what she was experiencing at that point in January of 2023?
She wasn't just having everyday thoughts that we all have, reminding ourselves to do something, which we make note of, and then we move on. Intrusive thoughts are unrelenting. They don't stop. They're what we call ego dystonic. You don't want them. They keep interfering with your ability to get through the day.
Did she have, at this point, intrusive thoughts continuing regarding voices in her head that she heard constantly?
Yes.
What were these voices saying to her?
They were getting worse, and they were telling her to kill herself.
And as January continued, she was, to your knowledge, using her computer to look up drugs and interactions and side effects and things of that nature?
Yes.
If a person is in a psychosis, or as I think you said premorbidly, psychosis, are they able to do things like look up things on a computer?
Yes.
And you're aware that she actually at one point looked up, can you cure, I think a sociopath or a psychopath or something like that?
It was sociopath, yes. She
Is that indicative of her feeling that she is a homicidal maniac and has to have some help, or is that in the same time frame that she was Googling all of the effects of medications on a human being?
Is it an objection?
Yes.
Yeah, sustained.
So during the period that she was Googling, well, let me ask you, what was she Googling?
Googling words about sociopaths, sociopathy. Can you treat a sociopath? What are hallucinations?
What else?
Bear with me one moment, if you don't mind.
Well, you had a chance. Did you look at the Google searches that she had
Yes.
done that's in evidence, and the jurors were able to look at it?
Yes.
Did she continue to Google the effects of medication, psychosis, numbness, heaviness, unable to, things like that?
Yes. All things that are related to the way
And if
she
a
was
person
feeling.
is in a psychotic state, are they able to continue to Google and use a computer to look things up?
Yes.
They're able to use a phone?
Yes. People who are in that state can do things they've done before. New tasks may be difficult, like changing a tire, but if you looked up things on the internet, you can look them up again. If you drove a car, you can drive a car.
Now, the morning of January 24th, I believe she went somewhere. Is that right?
Yes.
Where'd she go?
You should take her daughter to a pediatrician, a standing pediatrician appointment.
And is it your understanding, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that a person who's in a psychotic state is able to drive a car for a short distance, go to an appointment, and interact and talk to people?
Yes, they can do everyday tasks of living.
So the fact that she's not talking about the unicorns in the corner, and she's not slurring her speech, and she's not unable to walk, to your opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, does that mean that she's not in a psychotic state?
It does not.
Would you tell us, after she took Cora to the doctors, and the jurors have had a chance to look at the exhibits, there's photographs between her and her husband, Pat, back and forth. In the afternoon, what did she do?
She built a snowman in the backyard
Did
with
she
two of her kids.
later in that day Google directions to a restaurant, 3V restaurant, I believe?
Yes.
Is that something that a person can do when they're in that type of a state?
Easily.
Did the
Yes.
voices or the intrusive thoughts to your interview and your understanding abate or stop at that point on January 24th?
No.
This section is crucial because it directly addresses one of the most obvious questions a jury might have. If Lindsay was truly experiencing psychosis, how could she drive, take her daughter to a pediatrician, communicate with her husband, use Google, build a snowman, and make plans for dinner? The expert's answer is that psychosis does not necessarily erase every ordinary ability. According to the testimony, a person experiencing psychosis can still perform familiar, routine tasks. The witness explains that someone may be capable of using a phone, driving a familiar route, or looking something up online while simultaneously experiencing serious disturbances in thought or perception. That distinction is important because courtroom evidence can sometimes create a misleading either-or assumption. Either someone is completely disconnected from reality, or they are functioning normally. The testimony is arguing that mental illness doesn't necessarily work that way. And notice the specific point the attorney asks about. On January 24th, Lindsay reportedly took her daughter to a medical appointment and later built a snowman with two of her children. Yet when asked whether the intrusive thoughts and voices had stopped, the witness says they had not. So the testimony is asking the jury to separate observable everyday functioning from internal mental state. Someone can appear composed, communicate clearly, and complete familiar tasks while experiencing severe psychiatric symptoms that aren't immediately visible to everyone around them. That is a complicated issue, and it's clearly becoming central to the defense's theory of the case.
Did they continue?
Yes.
And did she communicate by text with her husband about getting dinner and getting something from CVS?
Yes.
And what was it? Was it Pedialyte?
Pedialyte or Flexilax, it's a stool softener for her child.
And that's something that was prescribed by the doctor, right?
Yes.
Does that make sense that if somebody is in a state where they're having these symptoms, that they're able to remember that the doctor wanted the child to have Pedialyte and she tells her husband to get Pedialyte?
Yes, it does not interfere with that type of everyday living.
She indicated to you, sir, that that evening after the husband had, oh, by the way, was it your understanding from talking to her that the husband had taken trips, gone away for weekends, gone on ski trips, had brunches with his friends, and was out of the house on a regular basis?
Yes.
That night is when the children were killed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we've heard repeatedly about the circumstances of the going out the window and the weather and the damages and the injuries and going to the hospital. Doctor, based on your review of all of the medical records, did you administer any testing, by the way, to her? Like you were talking about psychological testing?
Yes.
And what were the psychological tests that you performed?
Initially, I did a mini mental status exam, MMSE. It's just a common test
Wait a
about
minute.
orientation.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. NSE? What is that?
MMSE, mini mental status examination. Very common test.
Okay.
Demonstrating whether someone has a field of knowledge, who's the president, what direction should travel, and basic things like where are you, what day is today, who are you? And then I did another test as well.
What other test was that, sir?
That's the HARE Psychopathy Checklist, HARE.
What does that do?
That's a measure of antisocial personality disorder.
And do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty based upon the scale that you use to assess whether or not Lindsay Clancy had anti-personality disorder?
Yes.
What was the result?
The result is
Here we reach another major piece of testimony. because the expert is now addressing the difference between psychosis and the idea that Lindsay was a sociopath or had an antisocial personality disorder. The testimony says the expert administered a mental status examination and also used the Hare psychopathy checklist, which the witness described as a measure related to antisocial personality disorder. The result, according to the testimony, was that Lindsay did not have antisocial personality disorder, also referred to here as sociopathy. That matters because the earlier testimony discussed Lindsay's internet searches about sociopathy, hallucinations, psychosis, and whether a sociopath could be treated. In other words, the expert is drawing a distinction between what Lindsay may have feared or believed about herself and what the expert concluded after evaluation. Searching for information about being a sociopath does not, by itself, establish that someone actually has that disorder. The testimony then shifts toward postpartum psychosis and a broader collection of symptoms: depression, anxiety, withdrawal, exhaustion, confusion, hallucinations, dissociation, racing thoughts, agitation, and severe insomnia. Taken together, the expert is presenting these symptoms as a pattern rather than isolated incidents. And that distinction is important for the final opinion. The jury isn't simply being asked whether Lindsay had a bad day, felt depressed, or experienced anxiety. The defense is building toward the argument that these symptoms formed part of a serious psychiatric condition that affected her mental state at the time of the incident.
So she does not have any type of antisocial personality disorder, also known as sociopathy.
In addition to reviewing the medical records and testing and meeting with her, did you also interview third parties?
Yes.
Is that referred to in the psychology as collateral contacts?
Yes.
And you reviewed and interviewed a number of people in her family or friends or people in her social circle, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, sir, to a reasonable degree? Well, let me ask you this. Are you familiar with Mass General Hospital doing a major research program on postpartum psychosis?
Yes.
And did they publish an article, a significant article, regarding the circumstances, symptomology, and things of that nature of postpartum psychosis?
Yes.
And would you agree, sir, that the symptoms of postpartum psychosis would be depression? Is that one?
Yes.
Did Lindsay, to your opinion, have depression?
Yes.
And were there indications from your review of the medical records that she felt low, flat, tearful, emotional, crying?
All of those things, yes.
Did she also express anxiety, feeling tense, nervousness?
All of those things, yes.
Did she also express feelings that she was withdrawn, not able to socialize with people, wanting to talk or be near others?
All of those things as well, yes.
She indicate that she felt tired, heavy, without energy?
Absolutely, yes.
Did she indicate that she was having a harder time taking care of her children?
Yes.
Did she indicate that she was having issues regarding personal hygiene, not bathing, things of that nature?
Yes.
Did she indicate that she had severe confusion in actually hearing or seeing things that aren't there? In her case, it would not be seeing, that would be visual hallucinations. But did she complain of hearing things that weren't there, hallucinations?
Yes.
Did she complain of thoughts and beliefs that were not within reality and that she was in a disassociated state, out of reality?
Yes.
Did she indicate that, did you observe that there were circumstances where she exhibited increased energy, activity, productivity, otherwise known as hypomania?
Yes.
Did she complain that she had racing thoughts, a, quote, busy brain, end quote, increased creativity?
Yes.
And when she said in your review of the medical records that she was having a busy brain, did she express the fact that she would get confused and that she thought her brain was damaged?
Yes, that's correct.
Was she restless and agitated, unable to keep still?
Yes.
Unable to sleep?
Yes, extremely unable to sleep.
So can you tell this jury, sir, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty based upon all of what you have reviewed, all of what we have talked about, all of what you have considered as to whether or not at the time of this incident resulting in the killing of these 3 little kids that she was suffering from a mental disease or defect, such as that she lost substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her act, or, in the disjunctive, was unable to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law.
Yes.
Tell the jury what your opinion is, please.
My opinion is that she did have indeed a mental disease or a defect. That's a legal construct, not a DSM-5 one, but she had bipolar disorder with postpartum psychoses. In addition, she was unable to conform her behaviors to the rule of law, and she had no appreciation for the wrongfulness of her act.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And that brings us to the central conclusion of this testimony. After discussing the medical records, psychological testing, collateral interviews, treatment history, reported symptoms, and the progression from late November into January, the expert gives the jury his ultimate medical opinion. He says Lindsay had a mental disease or defect, identifying it as bipolar disorder with postpartum psychosis. He further states that, in his opinion, she was unable to conform her behavior to the rule of law and had no appreciation for the wrongfulness of her act. It is important to separate the medical opinion from the legal decision. The witness can offer an expert opinion about psychiatric diagnosis and mental functioning, but the jury is ultimately responsible for determining how the evidence fits the applicable legal standard. The testimony therefore gives the jury one side of a highly consequential question: whether Lindsay's mental state met the legal requirements for the defense being presented. Looking back across the testimony, the defense emphasized a prolonged pattern: depression, paranoia, intrusive thoughts, reported voices, dissociation, insomnia, treatment attempts, medication concerns, hospitalization, and continued symptoms. At the same time, the testimony acknowledged that Lindsay could perform many ordinary tasks. The expert's position was that those abilities did not rule out psychosis. That tension is arguably one of the biggest takeaways from this portion of the case. Outwardly functional behavior does not necessarily tell the whole story of someone's internal mental state. The jury ultimately has to weigh the expert's conclusions against all of the other evidence presented in court and decide what legal significance to give them. So what do you think? Does this testimony change how you view the events leading up to the tragedy? Or do you believe the evidence raises more questions than answers? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.